welcome back to Getting to the Top, where I interview transformational leaders about their leadership journey in hopes that we inspire you on your leadership journey and that we learn something new together about leadership and what it entails, and hopefully that it gets you to pursue greater aspirations towards leadership. Today, I have the distinct excitement and honor to introduce you to Maya Walrond. She is the Chief Commercial Officer of Jamaica Producers Group Limited. But I met Maya as the Regional Vice President of Scotiabank Group, where she served for quite a few years. And in all of that time, she has been a transformational leader, certainly somebody who has been really innovative and very exciting to watch. So I was really excited that she agreed to have this conversation with us, and especially as she's changed industries, to talk about what that's like and what spurred that on, and how she has, ushered through this phenomenal career, going from banking and going from, she's done all sorts of things in tech, in banking, and now at Jamaica Producers. So welcome, Maya.
Thank you, Racquel. It is really a pleasure to be here.
All right. So is there anything that you'd want to include in your introduction that I didn't cover?
That I am a mother of two. And that, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been an exciting journey, and it's been a journey that's all about me as a whole person, right? So I hope when we talk today, we'll get into Maya both at work and Maya outside of work as well.
Fabulous. All right. So how did it start? So tell me a little bit about, you were in high school, and what did you think you would do with your life?
So in high school, I wanted to be an architect.
Wow.
I love design, except that I was absolutely no good at art. And I think at the time didn't really understand what architecture was about. Everybody thought it was about whether you could draw a pretty face, portraits and trees and what have you, and I could do none of the above. And so I decided that I was going to be an engineer instead. Okay. Because I'd always been really good at the sciences, and sort of charted my path towards that for university. And as it goes, you think you're going to be one thing, and I have not practiced being an engineer one day of my life.
So you studied engineering, and then so you get out of school with this experience, and then what do you decide to do then?
Sure. So I ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania, so Penn to those of us who know and love it. And I enrolled in a dual degree program, so engineering program and a business program. And I just thought the business piece would be sort of a nice addition if I was ever in an engineering firm and wanted to know a little bit about running the firm, or, being a partner in the firm, that having some business knowledge would help. Right? Yeah. And I got there and instantly got sort of swept up in the Wharton tide of learning about kind of what makes businesses tick, and how do you help businesses to grow, and how do you face business challenges. And I got really, really excited and interested in that. Ended up spending a couple of summers as a management consultant, and then took the leap into management consulting, which, I say I've never been an engineer, but I certainly use the thinking from engineering in terms of helping companies think through their strategy, helping them think through the logic of certain things, think through the processes that customers need to experience, etc. So it certainly has come in handy, even though it hasn't been my profession.
So and during that time you were working in all sorts of different places.
I have. So, one of the things I always encourage young people to do is just go out and explore and take risk and see the world. There's a point in many of our lives where we have less flexibility to do that.
Yeah.
And I do not regret the fact that I, spent my early career. I lived in Latin America for a year, in Brazil and Buenos Aires in Argentina. I was in New York, I was in the UK, I went on to study in Boston for my MBA. And so I got exposed to lots of different working cultures, working styles, and just wonderful places to visit and get to know. And have mentors and friends and sponsors in many places that I think otherwise I would not have had a chance to do.
So you're working overseas. So how are you deciding on, you're with Deloitte, you then go to Time Warner. Tell me about that transition from, that first job at Deloitte and then going to Time Warner, and how you keep navigating those worlds.
Sure. So, having started off as a management consultant, one of the wonderful things about that industry is you are kind of right at the head table very early in your career. At least getting to hear a lot of the conversations that the business leaders in that organization are grappling with. Mm-hmm. And your role is to, help them kind of put frameworks and thinking around their problems to help them solve it. And so it's a very exciting career. But I got to the point where I started to feel a little bit of that imposter syndrome that we women have a lot, where I just felt like, okay, I am a 20-something-year-old, advising these very senior people about how to run their business. And so I decided it was time to go off to business school. So I went to Harvard Business School, which was a wonderful 2-year experience. And I think, grew up a lot at HBS, just meeting a bunch of people from different walks of life and hearing their perspectives on business. And then when I came out of there, I had the opportunity to go back into consulting. And I thought, actually, for me to really feel my most sort of credible self, I feel like I need to now kind of go into what we call the industry side or the client side, and, have to do and have to deliver, all of these sort of business performances that you as a consultant are ultimately not accountable for. Right.
So all of this great advice, you got to take it.
Yes. Yeah. And so I decided that the right way to do that was to sort of transition halfway into a strategy group at one of these larger companies. And I worked in telecom and media, primarily in strategy at first. And then, slowly over time, started to hone in on what was sort of my area of expertise, right? And for me, that is, anything that's customer related and anything that's growth related, right? So I'm very passionate about, customer experience and how do you kind of deliver a customer experience that is a wow, and that engenders great loyalty from your customer base, and how do you grow and how do you scale a business? So those started to become my areas of expertise, and as I started to develop those practice areas, that's when I started to sort of get into roles that were very specific to leading that part of the organization. So whether it's, commercial director or chief commercial officer or, senior vice president of retail, they all have a sort of common theme around that piece of helping businesses grow and thrive.
So how did you enjoy that piece? Like, that was what you were good at. Was that what you liked as well?
Yes.
Crafting a customer experience. Were there any particular customer experiences that you had that either made you feel like this is something I absolutely have to replicate, or something that has to be fixed?
Yeah. So one of the things I particularly love about the whole idea of customer experience and sort of sales and marketing and product is that you can glean so much from your own experiences, and you can glean when you're sitting in, let's say, a bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many other industries and so many other daily experiences that you have that really inform what you believe would wow a customer, right? So you can sort of say, okay, a bank is a financial services organization, but it's also a retail organization, right? So what is it about, going to Nordstrom? One of my favorite places in the world is Nordstrom, by the way.
Me too.
What is it about going to Nordstrom and the service that they provide at Nordstrom that we can pull on to create an amazing banking experience, right? What is it about the platform of another one of my favorite companies is Rent the Runway. What is it about the Rent the Runway platform that I find so easy and engaging that we could apply to, another industry, to telecom, in terms of people being able to manage their service experience, right? And so I find that really fun. I find it really intellectually stimulating. I find it super fun to get feedback from customers who really enjoy, new innovations and new experiences. And I particularly have come to love what technology brings to the table for us, because I think there's so many exciting things that we can now do with technology in this digital world that weren't opportunities before, and which both kind of go down to the bottom line in terms of helping us deliver our services more efficiently, but also are just super mind-blowing experiences for customers that they come back and give you wonderful feedback on.
Do you, and this is putting you on the spot, but do you recall a mind-blowing wow customer experience that you've had that has colored your sort of boundaries on what a customer experience could be like?
I think the easiest one for me would be the experience that we were able, I'm going to do one that we actually delivered, right?
Oh, wow, nice. And so I meant one just that you experienced, but one that you delivered.
I mean, there are loads that I experience on a day-to-day basis. As I say, I'm kind of a fan of trying new business models, and particularly disruptive business models.
Nice.
So I've mentioned a couple of the ones that I think are pretty special already. But in terms of one that I had the opportunity to lead, I would say that the advancement of the digital channels at Scotiabank was something that I have watched over the years, from what was originally a fairly clunky sort of early days platform to something that today is, we would have introduced the new version of it in 2017, I think. And it is, as a customer, I remain a customer of it today, and it continues to improve, past the time that I've been there. But it was really a leap forward that we took in 2017. And since then, it has literally become something that I use at least 5 times, 6 times a day, right?
Wow.
It's the way I pay people. It's the way I transfer money between accounts. It's the way that I understand and plan. It's the way that I have a full vision of what I'm doing. So I think that's been pretty exciting. Most of the models that I'm very impressed by are actually outside the Caribbean. So, one of them is a company called Mint. That is, it's an Intuit company. So they do products. Mint. They do products
Okay,
like Quicken, etc. And again,
yeah.
it's a financial services platform that lets you see everything from everywhere at one time. And provides a lot of interesting insights and data and offers to help you really craft a better financial plan for yourself, without necessarily delivering the financial services, right? So it's really a consolidator of a view for you. So those are the things that every day I get inspired by a new company. And it's actually sent me back to school, Racquel. I've been so inspired, I've gone back to school.
You know what's crazy to me, right? That you have spent all of these years at Scotia, and the way that you talk about banking, it is like a love. It is like your face lights up. It's crazy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like, this is like your first boyfriend and you left, but you weren't really ready to go.
I love it. I must say, I have spent time in lots of industries, both those that are physical in nature. So, in January, actually just finished my tenure with Jamaica Producers, and we did a lot of fast-moving consumer goods, manufacturing. So it was a great learning experience for me to deal with like physical things for the first time. But I would say my love is probably services. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be financial services, but it is services, and it is kind of delivering on a need that a customer has or solving a pain point that they have. So you see me lighting up about financial services because I think it's one of the industries where technology has really been very disruptive, very exciting, and has so much potential to just transform the way that our everyday lives work. So it does get me pretty jazzed. But it's really the digital piece of it that gets me jazzed. So I was mentioning that I've just I'm in the middle of a global cohort at Wharton, back at Wharton.
Nice.
After an unmentionable number of years. Doing a 9-month program on digital transformation for C-suite.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, wonderful. So you'd recommend the course?
I absolutely would. It's very early days for me, but it's exciting to be back in a classroom environment. It's an exec ed course, and so a lot of it is delivered virtually, with a few elements on campus. But it is just. We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome before, and I think one of the things that I want to encourage women to think about is, because we suffer from this thing, right? People offer us like big opportunities and we're like, oh no, if there are 20 things on that list that you need, I only have 19, I'm not the right person for the job, right?
Right. And some other person, I won't name the gender, will roll in with 2 out of 20 and be like, this is me.
Quite. So we tend to have, this sense of being a little bit risk averse and having a little bit of imposter syndrome. But one of the things I have learned about that is, yes, we are to push ourselves to step forward, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's important to listen to the little voice that says, but I have an opportunity to be better at this if I know this. Or I have an opportunity to be better at this if I can find a person who can coach me. Or I have an opportunity to be better at this if I have the following support in place, right? So I think it's a useful instinct.
I think it's a fine balance, right? Because I think, yes, it's great to sort of want to be as prepared as possible, to want to know as much as you need to be as upskilled as possible, but to also recognize that we are, as women, tend to be over-prepared, over-skilled.
Absolutely.
And hold ourselves back from opportunities for this need to be over prepared and over skilled up and not ever believing that we're good enough and that we have to start finding the balance between, okay, yes, believe that instinct in, the more you know, the more you prepare, the harder you work, great. But also understanding the other half of the population is just going at it. So
no, yes, and that's what it is. It's a balance, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've spent a lot of time encouraging women to just jump in.
Yeah.
But I have seen the instances where we have jumped in without the requisite support or without the requisite training, and then people go, see, she couldn't do it, right? And so,
but isn't that because sometimes they give us these kamikaze missions that by the time you see an organization, appoint a woman at its head, it's because everything has gone. Look at Marissa Mayer and Yahoo. Yahoo was like going so horrifically wrong.
Yes.
We might as well appoint the woman now.
Yes. I remember an organization, which will remain nameless, that all of a sudden wanted a local, right? When things were good, they were very happy to bring in people. But when it started to go bad, it was, we are dedicated to the idea of putting a local in place, right? And I thought to myself, to give them a basket and carry water, So sometimes that is exactly what happens, right? We definitely need to be thoughtful about that. And I am a risk taker, and I encourage other women to be risk takers and to seek interesting and uncomfortable opportunities. We grow when we're uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
So absolutely.
And this is the thing, you have been the chairman of the private sector Jamaican Human Capital Development. You've been a non-executive board director of VM Group Digital. You have a Harvard MBA grad. Like, what more? You've been an extraordinary regional VP for Scotia. What more could you need to feel ready? The rest of us just hope that we could get that. And I'm not saying that you should give up on learning, but I'm just saying, I feel like this imposter syndrome might be incurable because you have been through every experience. You've managed billions of dollars in portfolios. You've worked with people like Time Warner. The rest of us could just hope to have something so glamorous on our resumes, and still you're like, yeah, but I want to make sure I'm really prepared. And I'm like, listen.
No, it's not, I want to make sure I'm really prepared. There are very few things that daunt me, right?
Okay, good.
That I would go, I don't know if I can do that, right? There are very few things that daunt me. But I have learned over time that I don't know it all, and that there are continued opportunities for learning, and that the world is shifting and changing at a pace that means that what I learned 4 years ago right, is outdated.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
That there are ways to deal with that. Some of it is learning it yourself. Some of it is making sure that you have a team with the skill sets around you to really complement the skills that you bring to the table, right? And as I said, some of it is about making sure that you have the support systems in place, whether internally at your organization or outside in your outside life, to be able to really excel at the things that you take on, right? So,
and I must say, like a Wharton's exec ed course there is no better networking on the planet.
No, it's great.
You would meet some of the most extraordinary leaders from everywhere, in that room. And sometimes, yes, I appreciate the education that you will get would be amazing, but the networking would cover the cost of the course for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always a great opportunity to meet people from all over the world doing a variety of different things. And everyone in this particular instance is interested in digital innovation and digital transformation. So that's particularly exciting. And, you know, networks become more and more important as your career advances. And, you know, when I think about people that I'm inspired by, my younger self would be like, you know, Nelson Mandela, right?
Yes.
Somebody I haven't met, or some great business leader that I may never be in the room with. And I find increasingly these days, I'm really inspired by my peers, right? I am super inspired by my peers. And so that's my peers from school. That's my peers in terms of my working life. You know, I was struck the other day. I'm very blessed to be surrounded by incredible women doing incredible things. And I'm so proud of sort of where we have reached I'm in my mid 40s. And I'm really proud of not just where I have reached, but where so many of my colleagues have reached and what they've accomplished. They really are my inspiration.
And sometimes, I mean, you know, speaking of where inspiration comes from, there are times when I'm inspired by my children, you know, just like, oh my gosh, you know, the barriers that you don't even see, you know, and that sometimes, you know, my younger daughter, you know, said to me the other day, she's like, Mommy, you know, I'm unstoppable. And I was like, you are. I was like, oh my gosh, it took me forever to figure that out. And the fact that at 4 you get that, oh my gosh, how amazing. You're already ahead of the game. And my older daughter as well, how very deliberate she is about work and, you know, what she wants out of life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, I'm so inspired by how, you know, her quest for perfection is sometimes, I think, a bit of a hindrance, but certainly sort of the deliberate nature of knowing what she wants and going after it. And yeah, should we have been so lucky?
Absolutely. And you know, I find I have 2 kids, right? And I find I learn a lot from them. They're definitely my teachers. They're my teachers in terms of, you know, some of my own leadership, I guess, skill sets, right? So teaching patience. You know, teaching when you need to let go and let somebody else learn how to do something independently. Right? Instead of doing it for them. And that was, I think, one of my bigger challenges as a leader. You know, I came in as very much sort of the individual performer, right? And making that transition from being really the thought leader to the people leader. Is quite a transition. And for some people, it comes very naturally. I wouldn't say it came very naturally for me, but it is certainly something that I got better at. And parenting is one of the things that helped me get better at that, you know?
That is so interesting because that's so true. I mean, you know, some of the people who get recognized and promoted are those individual performers who shine. But then you ultimately get to the point where what will help you to succeed is your people leadership. And as an individual performer, you don't always get the chance to sort of hone those skills. And so you're thrown into the deep end of having to make others perform. And you're like, I've not really done this before. So now I have to figure out, how do I get all of these moving parts? And I'll tell you, you know, it took me a long time to not have leading people be the least favorite part of my work. But like you, I am absolutely inspired by many of my peers. And, you know, you go through this period where you're inspired by, again, you know, the people that you don't know and have never met. And I've been
Yeah.
really, really fortunate in this role that I've gotten to meet a lot of extraordinary people that I would have never imagined on getting the chance to meet. But then you start looking around at your, your leaders and the people who've led you that have been absolutely extraordinary. And then the people who you grew up with, and you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
One of my best friends on this planet just became the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Public Administration for Trinidad and Tobago. And she's so extraordinary, so extraordinary. I'm so excited.
Fantastic.
I'm like, I know this woman.
Yes, fantastic. So, this month of March where we celebrate women,
Yeah.
is, I think, so very sort of inspirational and exciting to see just the range of impact that we are having. I'm originally from Barbados, so I
always thought you were Jamaican.
Really?
This is like a revelation to me. I always thought you were Jamaican. I knew you spent time in Barbados, but I never realized you were Bajan.
Yes. Well, I'm both. My mother was Jamaican, and my father is Bajan. But we were born in Barbados, grew up in Barbados,
Nice.
raised in Barbados. Yeah. But I've spent, a good part of my adult life in Jamaica. So I'm definitely now the representative Jamaican of the family.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So I'm both. I'm a Caribbean woman, right? When it's February, I'm Trinidadian. So I'm a big regionalist at heart. I really think that there's so much potential for us as a region, and to start really tapping into that potential. I think we have in many ways not completely missed the boat on it, because I'm still optimistic that it can happen. But I do feel like we've squandered a lot of opportunities to really come together. And I think actually one of the things that excites me about technology is I feel like it's a chance for us to dissolve these borders a little bit, right? Because we've been separated in these small populations by water and lack of airlift and all of the sort of logistics issues of being small islands, right? And I think technology just kind of makes that disappear, or can make that disappear, makes us a borderless world. And so it's exciting because it's the first time that our companies can really scale, right? So we can really scale, we can really start developing things that are for millions of people as opposed to tens of thousands. And that makes a difference in terms of, the ability for us to really, be global companies, the ability for us to invest at a particular level that, doesn't make sense if you're just doing it for this territory or this small territory. So I think it's an exciting opportunity. I'm waiting to see who becomes the first Caribbean unicorn.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Listen to me. I feel like I've been waiting my entire life for that first Caribbean unicorn, because I feel like we absolutely have the potential. And when you look across the globe at some of the big tech companies and you see, the people at Facebook and at Google and at Apple, Caribbean people, you're like, we have that potential. We just need we just need that one unicorn to get through. And it would be so phenomenal if that first unicorn was woman-led.
It would be phenomenal for it to be women-led, and I think it's more than possible that it will be. Right? There are incredible women at the forefront of digital innovation right across the Caribbean. And there are lots of exciting ideas that people are working on. And I think we just need to think bigger.
That is the bane of my existence, is that we see so many, this is what I'm doing for my community, or this is what I'm doing for this section of the country. And I'm like, no, you need to be thinking about, this is what I'm doing from here globally even
Yes.
if you're thinking Caribbean first, but Caribbean first, and then how do you expand that
Right.
to the globe, right? Because,
Exactly.
I was at a meeting last week, and in that room, we were talking about building something out. And I said to that room, I said, when I looked around the room, we had so many people represented. And I said, in this room, and it was only about 20 of us, but almost all Caribbean people. I said,
Mm-hmm.
who in this room do we not have here that we need to make a decision or don't have 1 or 2 degrees of separation to access? And that was the thing. Literally in that room, we had people who within 2 phone calls could speak to President Biden or to,
Yes.
speak to absolutely anybody on this planet. And so the nice thing about being from this small community is that our degrees of separation evaporate
Absolutely.
and we have
Absolutely.
access to everyone. And we
Yeah.
need to start using that as our superpower.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Strap on the cape.
For sure, for sure. But what's funny when we talk about extraordinary customer experiences, I remember being in China, and this was oddly enough not not a customer experience as much as it was an ad that just stayed with me. One of the worst things about working in China is that you have 12 hour from Trinidad at least is that you have
Yes.
a full 12-hour day in Trinidad and then the next 12-hour
It
shift
starts.
starts in China. So you never actually get a break if you are traveling to China from Trinidad. You just don't get a break. And
Sure.
so I was exhausted. I was on several days worth of no sleep. And as I come into my hotel room, it was the Ritz-Carlton, the TV was on and they were playing just this ad. And they were talking about the experience that they create and, about, how all of the things that you can do at the hotel and the experience that you can have there. And they said, let us stay with you. And that was like, oh my God. And I
Right.
was just like, yeah, it's not,
Just
I'm
turning
not
it on
staying
its
with
head.
you. Exactly. Turning the whole thing on its head. And just in that moment, I was able to be there and feel that experience. And that one ad, that one conversation where they're showing you the kind of in-depth experience you can have at that hotel, that has stayed with me for, oh my gosh, 10 years, 10
Yeah.
years, that one
Yeah.
ad. And so
Yeah.
it's about that, it can be that one moment. And when you talk about your experience in creating a customer experience, I see that has stayed with you. That creating those customer wow moments, that's
Mm-hmm.
that's in you. You cannot get away
Yeah.
from that.
That's the whole fun of it, right?
Yeah.
That is fundamentally what we are doing when we have a business and we offer something. People have choice, and I think yes, ultimately you're trying to deliver shareholder return and all of the things that kind of filter out at the bottom, but it always starts with the customer and always ends with the customer as far as I'm concerned, right? So that's the part I find really fun. And I think, as I go along in my career, I give myself permission to know what I love, know what I'm passionate about, and choose only the things that I'm passionate about, right? I think earlier in your career, sometimes you have to kind of eat your peas. Yeah, like to sort of expose yourself and round yourself out as a leader in business. It's good to kind of go and do some things that are maybe not exactly what you love, but you're learning from them and you're rounding yourself out. But I think I've now reached a stage where it's really important to me to be excited, to wake up in the morning and be excited about you know, what I do and who I work with as well. And you know, it's you've earned that luxury at this point to have that kind of choice. So it's a nice place to be at this stage.
And I love that about, you know, when you're early in your career, and if you choose to start a family and you haven't started that family yet, then use that time to explore and, you know, to travel and to work in different places and to amass different experiences, but also be willing to tap into the things that light you up on the inside so that you are an absolute beacon when you think and talk about what you do. And also being willing to listen to the voices, but also to temper those voices. Listen to those voices when they're telling you something constructive, but also be willing to temper it to understand, you know, at some point, you gotta go.
You just gotta leap.
You gotta leave.
You just gotta leap. Yes, yes. I remember a particularly good retreat in one of my earlier organizations, and yeah, we did an exercise where we kind of all had to come to the edge and take a leap, literally take a leap.
Wow.
And you know, it's just that idea that the reward comes with a little risk, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge is, again, something, the challenge and the discomfort is where you grow. So yeah. And sometimes you make mistakes, and if you're not making any mistakes, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, no, lucky you if you make mistakes. Our chief of staff called me today and told me she made a mistake, and I was like, in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't even a rounding error. Well, and then she said, you know, our director of public sector project said the same thing. Call me when you've made a real mistake. And that's, you know, you're not doing enough unless you're actually making a mistake, because it means that you're human and you're fallible and you're learning and you're growing. So good on you. Good on you when you make a mistake. That's how you learn.
Absolutely.
Maya, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And I really
It's been a pleasure.
Your wholeheartedness in talking about this, and especially the things around the customer journey that you absolutely lit up about. You know, I honestly have to think about, is there anybody else who's been as excited about the customer journey? So, and the customer journey in banking, but no.
you're like
no, it is certainly. I don't log into my banking app nearly as much. I'm now gonna like log in and be like, oh my God, what's in here? Let's get into it. But there's so much happening and so much changing and so much transformation. And like you said, it's an opportunity for us in the region to use digital as a leapfrog. Yes. And to completely change the way we do things and to get connected in a way that we haven't before, and to play to our strengths and the things that we already do really well, and to embrace our Caribbeanness versus our islandness, you know. And so I think amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you to our listeners for spending this time with us and for learning and to being on this journey with us. And hopefully if you haven't subscribed, you subscribe. And if you have subscribed, see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Racquel.